Trump's tariffs have created uncertainty for American farmers, leading to canceled contracts, stalled grain shipments, and lost markets. In just 1 year, 7 of America's closest agricultural partners turned to Canadian corn instead of U.S. supply. The consequences go beyond lost sales. Bread is missing from tables, livestock feed runs dry, and small towns watch their economic lifeline vanish. Nations are abandoning U.S. corn for Canada's stability, technology, and trust, advantages America can no longer guarantee. Egypt, the first crack in the foundation. The collapse of American agricultural dominance began with Egypt. A late-night phone call from an Egyptian grain buyer marked the end of a 30-year reliance on U.S. corn. The reason? Uncertainty. Egyptian mills, which depended on consistent shipments from Illinois and Iowa, could no longer trust a supply chain disrupted by trade wars, policy reversals, and sudden tariffs. When a routine U.S. shipment was delayed for weeks due to politically motivated inspections, Egyptian bakeries rationed flour while corn sat in American ports. Canada stepped in with a revolutionary offer: boring, predictable reliability. Fixed-price contracts, guaranteed deliveries, and transparent documentation won Egypt over. Within 18 months, Egypt signed an $847 million annual deal with Canadian suppliers, leaving American farmers with silent phones and rotting grain. South Korea, the tech giant's quiet revolution. Seoul's grain importers expected digital efficiency, real-time tracking, blockchain verification, and instant documentation. American suppliers, still operating like it was 1995, couldn't keep up. A U.S. corn shipment sat for 3 weeks at Busan port, while inspectors struggled with handwritten paperwork and incomplete tracking. Meanwhile, a Canadian shipment arrived with flawless digital records, processed within 48 hours. South Korea manufacturers weren't just buying corn, they were buying supply chain certainty. Canadian grain came with QR codes linking to soil conditions, harvest dates, and quality tests. When Samsung needed 200,000 tons of corn, they went straight to Manitoba. Within 2 years, South Korea restructured its entire corn supply chain around Canada, achieving 34% faster processing and zero disruptions. Vietnam, the pivot that changed everything. A 12-word text message from Vietnam's largest feed manufacturer ended a decades-long U.S. corn relationship, switching Canadian suppliers effective immediately, thanks for everything. Vietnamese farmers were tired of price spikes caused by U.S.-China trade wars. Canadian suppliers offered political neutrality, fixed pricing, no diplomatic drama. The switch was seamless. Canadian corn arrived precisely on schedule, tailored for Vietnamese aquaculture. Feed costs stabilized, production efficiency soared, and within 3 years, Vietnam's corn imports shifted from 78% American to 89% Canadian. The reliability revolution spread across Southeast Asia, proving that food security mattered more than political alliances. Saudi Arabia, the Desert Kingdom's strategic shift. Saudi Arabia, which imports 85% of its food, realized its supply chain was an illusion of diversification. Most trade still flowed through U.S. control routes. When a grain shipment was delayed for political posturing, Saudi planners acted. Canada offered something revolutionary: complete independence from U.S. trade infrastructure. The first Saudi-Canadian deal, 400,000 tons annually, came with fixed pricing, guaranteed delivery, and zero political interference. Canadian grain arrived with blockchain-tracked documentation, pre-cleaned for desert storage. Within 3 years, Canada supplied 67% of Saudi grain imports. The kingdom invested $2.3 billion in Canadian infrastructure, making food security a permanent partnership. Mexico, the neighbor's betrayal. The deepest cut came from America's closest neighbor. Mexico's tortilla factories and livestock farms had relied on U.S. corn for 70 years, until political uncertainty made trade unreliable. A routine shipment was delayed for 3 weeks over immigration disputes, spiking tortilla prices and costing Mexico $340 million in losses. Canada offered an alternative: agricultural trade free from political interference. A test shipment of 10,000 tons arrived perfectly on schedule. Mexican processors discovered Canadian corn was not only reliable, but superior. Moisture levels calibrated for their equipment. The shift sent shockwaves through North America. If Mexico could leave, who was next? Japan, the precision economy's perfect partner. Japanese food manufacturers demanded consistency, moisture, and protein levels exact to the decimal. American corn couldn't meet those standards. Canadian grain did, with detailed analysis reports and predictive delivery windows accurate to the hour. When Japan introduced strict traceability laws, Canada's blockchain systems made compliance effortless. Mitsubishi chose Canadian corn for Wagyu beef feed, and within 4 years, Canada captured 67% of Japan's corn market. The partnership expanded into joint research and logistics, leaving U.S. exporters shut out of one of their most profitable markets. China, the superpower's strategic pivot. China's realization was stark. Despite importing from multiple countries, its food supply was vulnerable to U.S. political decisions. The solution? A historic deal with Canada. 2.3 million tons of grain shipped through Arctic routes, bypassing U.S. infrastructure entirely. The partnership grew to 5.7 million tons annually, with technology transfers and joint research. U.S. corn exports to China dropped 78%, wheat fell 84%, and soybeans nearly vanished. China then promoted Canadian grain across its Belt and Road Initiative, encouraging other nations to abandon U.S. suppliers. The generational turning point. Nation after nation has pivoted away from U.S. agriculture, not over price or quality, but reliability. If America loses not just distant allies, but its closest partners, this isn't just a market loss. It's a fundamental shift in global food security. The question remains, how long can America hold its place in the global food chain?